Today is Thursday, Parashat Lecha. We're learning from the Parashah of this week. There is an episode where Avram and Sarah, after they come to Canaan, there's famine, so they go down to Egypt. Avram is worried about the immorality of the place of Egypt, and therefore he's worried for his safety, being the husband of Sarah, who's a beautiful lady. He tells her, please tell everyone that you're my sister, thinking that way, that of course Avram will be spared any harm. So she's so beautiful that she's taken to the house of Paro, to the palace. And what happens next is Paro, who is hit with an illness, him and his entourage, his palace, that nobody can get close to Sarah Imenu. Anybody that would try would be hit with this kind of inflammatory kind of disease. And he realizes that there is a problem, and he figures out that Sarah is actually the wife of Avram. So he returns her to Avram. But before he did that, when he thought that he was his sister, he gave him flocks of sheep and cows and donkeys and slaves, and he made Avram into a wealthy man. Then Avram and Sarah go back, and the Pasuk makes sure to tell us that they stop at the same places that they stopped at when they were on their way down to Egypt. They stayed in the same hotels, in the same places as when they were on their way down to Egypt. So the Parashah with this description here teaches us quite a few ideas. Number one, the fact that Avram left from Egypt with a lot of assets as a wealthy man is actually a precursor. It sets the stage for the Jewish people. When they left Egypt, they went out with rechush gadol, with great assets that they were able to take with them as they left Egypt after 210 years of being there. Now, there's another thing also. The fact that anybody that tried to approach Sarah was hit with an illness, he brought into the Egyptian folklore a concept: don't get close to a Jewish lady, don't try to harm her or abuse her in any way, because there's a Paro, a king that tried to do that years ago, and the result was horrible. He was really hit with illnesses, so he was punished. So therefore, for the 210 years they were there, and during the decades of slavery, no taskmaster tried to abuse Jewish ladies. There was one rare exception with Shlomit Bat Divri, but that's a separate story. But in general, the fact that they were slaves could have caused a lot of situations where the Egyptians would try to harm the Jewish ladies or to abuse them, but the folklore in the Egyptian tradition and culture was don't get close to them, it's risky, the person would get punished. Then the Torah teaches us derech eretz, that Avraham Avinu, when he went down to Egypt, he was a person, very limited means. He went to Egypt, now he's becoming out as a young, wealthy man, yet he goes and stays in the same places that he stayed when he was on his way down. And as she explains, that's to teach us derech eretz, a polite way to act, that if you stayed at one place, when you go back, you should stay again at the same places, so that people don't think maybe there was something wrong the first time you stayed there. In other words, to give kavod to the people. And by the way, derech eretz is a general concept that people have to act with respect to other people, whether it is, being polite in terms of greeting them, or if you get a message from them, to answer, to recognize, to acknowledge the fact that you got a message for them. Sometimes people forget about these social kind of actions that create harmony and pleasant relations between people. So derech eretz is very important, and that's what Avraham did. He wanted to make sure that whoever he stayed with the first time when he was on his way down to Egypt, that he was grateful to them, that he was thankful to them, and out of respect for them, he stayed in the same place. The other opinion brought by Rashi was that actually when he went down to Egypt, he was not able to pay everybody for what he needed in terms of the places to stay, etc. So when he went back and he had with what to pay, he made sure to pay his debts. And that's another thing also that is important. when a person has a debt anywhere, to make sure to pay it back, and that we learn also from the Parashah of this week. So this was some of the lessons that we learned from this one episode in Parashat Lech Lecha. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen ve'amen.